How's it going, everyone? I hope you're having an awesome day. Welcome to the channel. I'm the ChainBaker, and in today's video I'll compare 15 different glazes used in bread making. We'll see their differences and their characteristics. So let's go to the kitchen and have a closer look. So here we go, 15 glazes. We'll start with the most simple one, water. And although it doesn't leave any residue, I would still call it a glaze, just because it gets brushed on before baking. Next up is olive oil, but of course different fats can be used. It'll make your bread shiny and a little bit greasy. Next up is a cooked paste of cornstarch and water. This will create a thin crispy layer on the crust. And the same goes for the next one, which is a paste of cooked wheat flour and water, both of which could be flavoured and coloured in any which way. Next one is a honey and water mix at a 50-50 ratio. Other syrups can be used. This one is a water and oil emulsion, sometimes used on focaccia. It's quite like a salad dressing. Number 7 is quite unique because it's made out of bread dough, rye bread dough to be specific. It makes for a crackly, crispy crust, quite like the one on a tiger loaf. The following 3 are dairy milk ones, starting with just regular old cow's milk, followed by buttermilk. This is thicker, it'll taste more acidic. Lastly we have sour cream. All of these will help with caramelizing the crust and giving it some flavor. I also wanted to see how plant milk stacks up, so this is almond milk. But the next one is pretty unique. It's a Panettone glaze. It's made by blitzing egg whites, nuts, sugar, cocoa powder and flour. It'll make the crust sweet, nutty and crispy. And the last 3 are all egg glazes. We got whole egg yolk and egg white. I just wanted to compare them side by side. I know there's only 15 glazes on the table, but all of these can be mixed with other ingredients to create different effects. They can be flavoured, coloured and so on. Out of these 15, you could probably make several hundred. Now some of these need some preparation, so I'm going to show you the more complex ones. Starting with the Panettone glaze. This is the exact glaze that I use for my no-knead panettone recipe. And all you need to do is combine the egg white, sugar, flour, nuts, cocoa powder, then grab a blender and blitz until smooth. This kind of glaze could be adjusted in many different ways. As long as you keep the egg white in there, you could pretty much use any nuts you like. And the cocoa powder can be swapped for any other flavouring. The egg whites and flour is what makes it stick, and the nuts make the crust nice and crispy, so this would be a perfect glaze for any kind of sweet bun. Next up is the water and oil emulsion, and if you made a salad dressing before, you know how this works. We got water, oil, and we'll add a little bit of lemon juice. This will help with creating the emulsion. A pinch of salt never hurt anyone. All you need to do now is whisk it until thickened. This kind of glaze is perfect for your high hydration flatbread, like focaccia. And you can of course season this and add any number of ingredients that you like. The water in this will soften the crust, but also make it a little bit crispy. And olive oil just gives it a nice flavor and a rich fattiness, not to forget. And you could literally pour this on your salad. Let's move on to the cornstarch paste. All you need to do is get a little pot with water, add the cornstarch at a 1:10 ratio. That's 1 part cornstarch, 10 parts water. Bring it over to the stove on high heat and cook it until thickened. It won't take much longer than a minute, and as soon as it starts thickening, get it off the heat and use it as soon as you can, otherwise you're going to start setting. Of course this can be coloured and flavoured in dozens of different ways. This right here is just a blank canvas for you to play with. The following one is similar but different because it's made with wheat flour, and the ratio is 1:6. 1 part flour, 6 parts water. It gets prepared exactly the same way and you can modify it the same way. You can find all the specific recipes and methods for these glazes in the written article on my website linked down below, and you'll find additional information about each glaze down there. Right, last but not least is the glaze made out of bread dough. This is a rye bread dough. It's gone through bulk fermentation, and to turn it into a glaze we simply whisk it up with some water. The way this would normally work, you would pinch a piece of your dough just before final shaping, then you would shape your bread and then you mix that piece of dough with some water, and then you leave both of them for the final proof. And just before baking, you brush the glaze on. And speaking of final fermentation, let's get our bread. I've got 15 dough balls of slightly enriched white bread dough. And this is the kind of dough you would normally use a glaze for. We'll let this fully proof. And whilst it's proofing, I'm going to preheat my oven. I'm going to bake these at 160 degrees Celsius with the fan on. Some of these glazes can take a lot higher temperatures, but a lot of them can't, so we'll keep things equal here. So the dough balls are fully fermented, we can start brushing them. All the glazes are brushed on in exactly the same way. Some of them will be thicker, some of them will be thinner, and they can all be adjusted to your liking. You can also double glaze your buns by brushing them, letting them dry, and then brushing again. I'm doing them in the same order as I showed you in the beginning, starting with the water, then the oil, then the cornstarch paste, then the flour paste, then the honey water mix, water oil emulsion, rye bread dough, milk, buttermilk, sour cream, almond milk, Panettone glaze, whole egg yolk and egg white. I had to rinse and dry my brush 15 times for this, but there we are, these are ready to go in the oven. It's worth noting that most of these glazes can be used as glue for attaching ingredients to your loaf. Seeds of course being the most common thing to sprinkle on top, but nuts, sugar pearls and sprinkles also can be used. It all depends on the bread that you're making. But let's pop these bad boys in the oven and see what comes out. Surprisingly, a lot of them came out looking quite similar, but of course the texture and flavour will be different. And they all got different degrees of shine, and as you know, sometimes the shinier the better. But it's worth noting that you can also glaze your bread after baking. These kind of glazes can preserve or enhance the shine and make the crust stay softer for longer, and one of them being oil. You could brush this one on pretty much any of these. You could also brush them with sweet syrups like honey and maple syrup. Another popular glaze to use especially for pastries is a jam and water mix at a 50-50 ratio. This will make the bread sweet, sticky and shiny. The following glaze will also do that. It is the most common glaze that I use, at least for fully baked breads that is. It is super simple to make. In a small pan, combine water and sugar at a 50-50 ratio. Then place it on your stove and bring it up to a boil. As soon as it starts boiling, take it off the heat and brush it on your buns. It is best applied as soon as the bread comes out the oven. Then it really gets to soak in. Okay, it's time to have a closer look at all these. We'll start with the water glaze. It helps the crust of the bread to color evenly. It keeps it moist during baking, preventing it from setting it too early. So it helps the bread expand, and this is true for most of the glazes. Next up is the olive oil. Although not very shiny, it does have a different texture, slightly thicker crust. The corn flour paste created a thin layer on the crust. You can kinda see it cracking as I press it with my fingers. And the wheat flour paste is quite like the cornstarch paste, and they both add little to no flavour. The honey and water mix has clearly caramelized the bun a lot more than the others. It's also a bit sticky and sweet. Next up is the water and oil emulsion, and it came out pretty similar to the pure oil glaze. I personally prefer just to use the oil. Next up we got the glaze that's made out of dough, and you can see that it kinda looks like a tiger loaf. It's got all those nice little cracks on the surface, and it has a nice crispy texture. Moving on to milk, of course it contains sugar, so it helps with caramelization, and it gave our bun a nice evenly colored crust. The buttermilk left some streaks, so this could be brushed on in a thinner layer, and it has caramelized more. Next up is the sour cream. It's got a nice beautiful shine, and also a nice beautiful caramelization. The almond milk kind of surprised me, because it does not contain any sugar, and even without any sugar, it's caramelized the bun beautifully. The Panettone glaze is one of my favorites here. It creates a thin, crispy layer. It tastes like chocolate and nuts. It's really unique, and I would encourage you to try it sometime. And last but not least, we got our 3 eggs. The whole egg, no surprises there, nice caramelization, amazing shine. The egg yolk naturally is a lot darker. Saying that, all the eggs could be mixed with a little bit of milk to dilute them. But lastly, we got the egg white. It doesn't caramelize as much, but it does bring an awesome shine, without any of the eggy flavor. And there you have it. 1 bread, 15 glazes. And like I said, these 15 can be mixed with many other ingredients to create hundreds of glazes. The only limit is your creativity. But generally, if you want the best shine, use egg. Or sour cream, surprisingly enough. Saying that, shine is not the only thing that we're after when we're glazing our loaves. So which one of these glazes is your favorite one? And what kind of bread do you use it for? Let me know down in the comments. To see more videos like this, click right here. To subscribe to the channel, click over here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.